Tonight on DC News Now, a final day of campaigning in Virginia.
We need a governor with a plan to stand up for Virginia.
Because ultimately voters want to know, do you see me? Do you know me?
The last push before polls open tomorrow morning in a historic election.
Families who rely on federal food assistance will get some funding during the government shutdown, but the SNAP benefits will take time to reach people. It's one of many hardships as the budget impasse nears a record.
Tracking seasonable high temperature sunshine and breezy conditions out there for your Tuesday, followed by a midweek warm up. More details coming up.
A high school sewage leak keeping students and teachers out of the classroom. The update following days of learning at a middle school.
You're watching the station covering all of the DMV. This is DC News Now.
DC News Now is your local election headquarters. We are counting down the hours until the polls open in Virginia. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us for DC News Now at 9. I'm Chris Flanagan.
And I'm Susan Tran. This will be a historic election in more ways than one. We've already seen record early voting with more than 1.4 million people who have cast their ballots. That's more than the total number of voters from the last off-year election back in 2021. We'll also see the first woman to be governor in Virginia. Both Republican Winsome Earl Sears and Democrat Abigail Spanberger getting out the vote in the final hours. Lieutenant Governor Earl Sears getting a boost from Governor Glenn Youngkin.
Like what we've been doing in Virginia. Well, Abigail Spanberger was never part of it. She hasn't been part of creating any of these jobs. She hasn't been part of helping Virginia to remain safe and secure.
Meanwhile, Spanberger here, the Democrat in the Richmond area today. She says if you're opposed to what she calls the chaos coming out of Washington, you should vote for her to be Virginia's next governor.
Tomorrow is the day that we get to show the rest of the country that when given the opportunity to vote for change, to vote for something different here in Virginia, we make the most of that opportunity.
Earl Sears was also campaigning in Manassas earlier, and we're going to bring you that event in our next half hour. Polls are open tomorrow from 6 in the morning until 7 at night.
And DC News Now has you covered on election night. We will have teams across the Commonwealth as we eagerly await results. Our election coverage begins both on air and online at 7 p.m.
The ongoing government shutdown will tie for a record tomorrow at 35 days. The Senate is again scheduled to vote on the very same GOP-backed budget bill that's failed more than a dozen times. In the meantime, the Trump administration says SNAP will be partially funded this month. Comes as 2 federal judges ordered the administration to pay for the program. DC News Now's Kristen Eskow has more on how 40 million families remain in limbo.
The U.S. Department of Agriculture says each household will receive half of its usual amount of SNAP benefits for the month of November. Now, the House remains out of session. The Senate plans to vote on Tuesday again on the government funding bill.
Households that obtain federal food assistance will receive funding for November after all. The Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program will be partially funded this month, following 2 recent court rulings. In court documents, the U.S. Department of Agriculture says it can only provide Americans on SNAP half of their monthly benefit before the contingency fund runs dry. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries says people should get all their money.
This is an intentional decision not to pay full benefits because the money exists.
It's not as easy as hitting go send on a computer. You got to go through and recalculate partial payments to the 42 million recipients of the program.
House Speaker Mike Johnson says Democrats are to blame for the problems with SNAP funding, as they haven't provided the votes needed to end the shutdown. But speaking at a food bank, Democratic Congresswoman Kathy Castor argues Republicans are the ones not taking action to reopen the government.
Folks in Washington, D.C., in the House of Representatives, the Senate, and the President to come to the table to negotiate an end to the health care crisis and the food crisis now.
The House did its job September 19th. We're waiting on the Senate to get this done.
The USDA has not said how soon SNAP recipients may receive their funds for the month of November. But in a recent court filing, the USDA warned it could take weeks or even months in some situations for states to distribute these reduced benefits. In Washington, I'm Kristen Eskow.
And all new tonight, Governor Wes Moore announcing $62 million in funding to cover SNAP benefits for Maryland families. Last week, he declared a state of emergency to help deliver resources to support Marylanders. He also issued an executive order to provide $10 million in emergency funding to support food banks. Now, Virginia and D.C. also both using emergency funds to support SNAP recipients.
We will continue to bring you the very latest developments from Capitol Hill, both on air and online, including resources that are available for families. You can find those details on our website, dcnewsnow.com. Just search government shutdown.
All right, let's get a first check on the forecast. Chief Meteorologist Jackie Layer, and not a bad way to kick off the Monday.
I know, Monday, the first Monday of November at that. And I mean, it's feeling like fall out there. It was a really nice day. We had the sunshine, at least after a few sprinkles early on this morning. But then temperatures did warm up into those 60s across much of the area today. Now we have fallen back into those 50s at this point. We're upper 50s right now in D.C., lower 50s up and down the I-81 corridor, seeing some 40s farther off towards the north and west. Those 40s will continue to spread their way farther south and east through the overnight tonight and into tomorrow morning. But the winds right now are picking up, mainly out of the west, and those are anywhere sustained from 10 even close to 20 miles per hour. A few gusts, though, those are getting right around the 30-mile-per-hour range, especially right around D.C., Leesburg, close to it in Hagerstown, and even right around that 20-mile-per-hour range out towards Winchester and down towards Waldorf, too. So a bit breezy out there. We're still likely going to be seeing that breeze out there for the day tomorrow, but we have this cold front continuing to slide across the area. So overnight tonight, flying back down upper 30s, farther out towards the Shenandoah Valley, low to mid 40s closer towards the district. So we start off in the 40s tomorrow morning for Election Day before we see those temperatures bouncing back middle 50s by 10 a.m., low to mid 60s, which is seasonable for this time of the year for tomorrow afternoon. But I'll have more details, time out the rest of that 7-day forecast in just a few minutes.
All right, Jackie, we'll see you then. Meanwhile, a sewage leak at this D.C. high school has forced students out of the building for a week. But tonight, an update on a community meeting in Southeast.
That's right. DC News Now's Ben Dennis joining us live outside of Anacostia High School. And Ben, when will students finally be able to return to their school?
This is certainly a disgusting ordeal, but it seems like good news is on the way. Anacostia high schoolers are set to go back to their own building tomorrow morning. They had spent the last week taking their classes at nearby Kramer Middle School, where space was available after the sewage leak. At a community meeting tonight, residents expressed frustration about what happened, but a widespread desire to prevent it from happening ever again. A week's worth of headaches for students, parents, and staff and neighbors near Anacostia High School after sewage crept inside school last Sunday. Several feet of sewage spotted in areas of the school, including an elevator shaft and the basement. A week after the event, community members gathered during a meeting at Anacostia Library, including a mother of a Kramer middle schooler and an Anacostia high school student.
The resilience that they showed to just go, to like, okay, we're going to move with this, I think is very commendable.
Other community members questioned why class wasn't canceled after the issue happened a day before, including Advisory Neighborhood Commissioner Tom Donahue. He shared video of the sewage the day students were sent home.
Why did students go to school on Monday?
We thought was a smaller event, right? This was just a smaller backup. Didn't understand the scale, its size. It wasn't until the following day that the elevator shaft was discovered.
During the meeting, DC Water said it was a pump that was rerouting sewage around a 100-plus-year-old pipe already under rehab that failed on October 26th. The company DC Water contracts with says they plan to know for sure how the pump failed Wednesday or Thursday of this week. But residents, parents, and alumni are hoping for more.
How are we training the students when they go back into that building if they're starting to notice symptoms or things? How are they to report?
I want you to tell us what happened, how it cannot impact the students any further, how it cannot affect the residents any further, and what we can do to make sure that it never happens again.
And while students are headed back inside the walls of Anacostia High School tomorrow, DCPS did mention that there was roughly a 20% drop in attendance once students were transferred over to Kramer Middle after the sewage incident began. Now, those same students also unfortunately had their homecoming events disrupted because of all the mess. In Southeast DC, Ben Dennis, back to you.
Ben, with that big update, thank you. All new tonight, the trial starts for a D.C. man accused of throwing a sandwich at a federal agent during President Trump's crime crackdown in the district.
And the video, take a look. You've seen it before. It appears to show Sean Dunn tossing the sub at the Customs and Border Protection officer back in August, turning that former Department of Justice attorney into a symbol of resistance against the president's law enforcement surge. The government is trying to persuade the jury to convict Dunn of assault, but already did fail to get a grand jury to indict him on a more serious federal charge.
In Maryland, 3 people recovering from being stabbed in Rockville this morning. This happened at Indian Hills Court. They say the suspect stabbed 2 family members, then a Good Samaritan trying to intervene. The victims were taken to a hospital, we're told, with non-life-threatening injuries.